The ancient philosopher Plutarch says, "The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled." That's what we're doing in the education world. We're trying to light that fire, that passion, that curiosity.
This is Kelly Smith, an MIT-trained engineer whose journey as a parent led him to turn his sights on building a whole new model for education.
When my daughter was a first grader, she was doing really well by any objective standard. She was getting great grades, but we could see that she was disengaged from learning. We saw this love of learning evaporating from our young daughter, and we thought, how can we help her? It doesn't have to be this way. We've come up with a model where parents and educators can form their own microschool designed around that learner at the center.
It's not about what you learn, it's about how you learn.
So whatever you want to do, turn it into something.
I'm not in front of the kids on a whiteboard writing answers. I'm there with the kids, staying curious, asking questions.
So far, Kelly's tech startup has helped people launch more than 1,000 microschools in the US. But what exactly are microschools? And could solutions like Kelly's be the key to bringing them to communities across the country?
This is Stand Together Presents. Stories, ideas, and advice from changemakers tackling our biggest challenges.
You got it. That's it, yeah. And now test it out, see what happens. I had no intention of getting into full-scale education. I had come up with a technical background. I studied physics and then nuclear science. As a father of 4 young children, I got to this point where I started asking questions about what's happening at school. I became obsessed with the problem of how kids learn.
If the struggles his daughter Molly faced at school gave clues to what might be missing in her education, Kelly soon saw the challenge with his own eyes.
When my oldest son was 8 years old, I decided that it was time for him to take some steps and learn some coding. And we put posters up around the neighborhood and invited strangers to come down to the library and learn computer programming with us. When I started Code Club, I didn't have firm opinions about how learning models work. So I grabbed a whiteboard marker and drew them this beautiful explanation of logic of computer programming. I turned around and saw that I had turned into the teacher from Charlie Brown. I could see it in their eyes. I had lost the whole class. The next week, I showed up to Code Club again, but instead of a prepared lesson, I gave a challenge of the week and a few bullet points of what your project should have to do. And just that alone, the desire of these kids to tackle this project, I saw the difference between a child who makes a decision to learn and one who's just kind of along for the ride.
It's fun telling my dad that he doesn't know how to code and I can code something for him.
So if you think about the history of education, tens of millions of kids in America being educated on a regular basis, and to manage a classroom of 20 or 30 students, there's a model that's not tailored to individual learners. We talk to people all the time that have gotten to this point of frustration where they're looking for options for their child. So Prenda's quest is to create access to a microschool environment for as many people as we possibly can. A microschool is a group of up to 10 kids meeting in an informal space and taking ownership of their own learning.
It's really the sweet spot where you get the social interaction that you get in a traditional public school, but you get the individualized, personalized aspect that you want when you're homeschooling your kids.
This is Becca, and this is her home. It also happens to be her school.
We call the adult in charge of a microschool a learning guide, because instead of being the one transmitting information, their role really is to help these young people develop into learners.
Kelly says the challenge is how to break down barriers and make it easier for people like Becca to start their own schools.
They are passionate about helping kids learn, but often don't have the depth in terms of the academic research that will help kids become empowered learners.
When I first heard about Prenda, I thought even if you're completely well-meaning and you love kids, how do you know what they should be learning? Nobody wants to have an 8th grader who can't add or subtract or read or write.
So how does the platform work so kids get the education they need?
We give you a whole learning model that's standards aligned. It includes all the English and math and science and social studies that kids need to be learning. Your job is to help them through it and support them when they're stuck.
What else do you notice when you look at this? Like, start your sentence with, I notice.
I noticed.
We start each school year by setting a year-long goal with that child, and then they can use that knowledge to plan their day. This kid has set a long-term goal so that he could be successful in this higher level math. I want to work at NASA someday on Mars rovers. This means I need to know math. So when this kid gets off track, we can remind him, hey, what's your purpose? They're really in the driver's seat for their own education.
Okay, but what about the financial realities? Books, school supplies, computers, and income for learning guides like Becca. Turns out with school choice programs, parents don't have to pay out of pocket for these microschools.
This is money that people have paid in taxes for the purpose of school, and we can bring that money to bear to help people regardless of their economic position.
There are so many little details that go into starting a school, and this really helps eliminate the red tape.
With the academic and financial barriers removed, Becca has witnessed how that's empowered more people in her community to start their own schools.
So as we walk, what are the rules?
Don't go on the street.
I was sitting at our elementary school at a Little League game with my friend Iris, and I kind of nudged her, hey, you could be a Prenda guide. We live so close to each other, parents could drop off at your house and my house. Okay, guys, we're here at Miss Iris's house. You could take the older kids, I could take the younger kids. We could start and end at the same time. We became the neighborhood school for these kids.
This is create a self-portrait as a different person.
Well, I'm really impressed. I think it's really, really neat.
I started with Code Club after school 5 years ago. By the end of this year, Prenda will be available to everyone in all 50 states. You could imagine a world where microschools are dotting all kinds of communities, suburban, urban, rural communities all over the country. There's no limit to how many people can participate because as more people come on, they create new opportunities and new microschools. And that really changes the way thousands and millions of kids will learn.
Stand Together partners with changemakers tackling our biggest challenges. To see more stories, follow our channels. And to learn more about how you can partner with us, go to standtogether.org.